This is a message for anyone who is tempted to start smoking again after God has given you the grace to stop. If God has given you the grace to stop smoking weed, do not start again. I'd been smoking from 13 up until the age of 21. And April 2021, that's when God finally delivered me from smoking weed. When I say it was a tough battle, there was dozens of times where I tried to stop in the past and I couldn't stop. I had tried to stop smoking. I went through withdrawal symptoms. I just couldn't do it. I tried to wean myself off. I honestly felt like a crackhead. Like, I know what it is to stop smoking weed. I know how difficult it is. It's very hard. But if God has delivered you from smoking, if you have been able to stop smoking, you are now tempted to go back, do not start smoking weed again. Don't start. Like, it's never worth it. If you have given that up and you know you don't want to be a smoker, do not go back to where you started. Do not go backwards. Always go forward. This is a time to build your self-discipline. This is a time to build your tenacity, to build your perseverance. This is the time to build you. This is one of the difficult times where you have to build that discipline and say no. Because let me tell you something. If I said that I never thought about smoking again from 2021, I'm lying. I thought about smoking. I've been so tempted to smoke. There's been times where I've just thought smoke would make like this situation so much easier. But then I have to remember, who do I want to be? What type of what type of person do I want to be? Do I want to be a person that smokes and succumbs to their weaknesses? Do I want to be a person that cannot function without relying on a drug? Do I want to be the type of person that cannot handle life without having some sort of assistance, or a person that is strong enough to get through situations? A person that is disciplined, a person that will not give in to their weaknesses at the smallest convenience. Do I want to be a person that is able to handle the battles of life by myself without having to rely on a drug? Or do I want to be someone that's dependent on a drug? All human beings have weaknesses, but that's a weakness that you give into. You give yourself to drugs. You give yourself to weed. You give yourself to cigarettes. You give yourself anything that alters your state of mind is a drug. You have to decide, what type of person do I want to be? Do I want to be that person that smokes weed and can't give up? Or do I want to be that person that has the discipline to say no and keep saying no every day? Because just because you give up an addiction, whether that be sex, whether that be pornography, whether that be smoking weed, it doesn't mean you'll never be tempted again. That addiction, that temptation is always waiting for you to give into it. Oh yeah, it doesn't just automatically go away and never come back. No, there are moments. At first it's hard and you get more temptations than other times, but as it goes on, the temptations get less and less. But there will always be a time where it's so strong. Why? Because you need to continually overcome your weaknesses. Everyone has their own weaknesses. Some people's weaknesses sex. Some people's weaknesses is smoking. Some people's weakness is drinking. Some people's weakness is swearing, anger. Everyone has their own weakness. No one is better than anyone, okay? Sin is still sin. But what differentiates you from another person is, are you able to say no and stick to your no? Are you able to be disciplined? Are you able to continue on the journey that you have put your feet on? Are you able to rely on God? Because God says, my strength is made perfect in weakness. So in the moments you are weak, that's when God's strength can really come through and be a pillar for you. I know it's hard. Life is hard. Sometimes you're grieving and you're going through a process of bereavement, and sometimes you think that smoking would just numb the pain. But let me tell you, that numbing only lasts for a moment. It doesn't last forever. You'll have to continue topping up that numbness. You'll have to continue smoking to keep that numbness. That numbness will never stay forever. And you don't becoming codependent on a drug so you don't feel a certain type of emotion. I'm sorry, baby. It's just a weakness you have to overcome. It's a weakness you have to overcome, because in life, you're always going to go through moments where things are crippling you, things are trying to break you, things are always coming for your strength. And this is where you have to rely on God. This is where you have to understand the person you want to be. This is where you have to look ahead and not backwards. This is where you have to talk to yourself. David encouraged himself, and Lord, you have to encourage yourself. I don't want to be a smoker. I will get through this. It's difficult, but I will get through it. Going through bereavement is very difficult, but you will get through it. You're not the first person to lose someone. You're not the first person to go through hardships in life. You're not the first person to hate your life. You're not the first person to feel like you don't have a purpose. You're not the first person to go through a heartbreak. No. And you are also not the first person to get through it without going back to smoking. You can do it, but you need to push. You need to push. This is the moment where you are being tested and you need to get through it. Otherwise, you're going to be right back at ground zero and you're going to just wish you never done it. There was times where I gave up smoking and then I thought, no, maybe I can just have one zoo. I can just smoke once. I have an addictive personality. That doesn't work for me. I can't just smoke. Like, religion aside, I have an addictive personality. Whatever I like, I get addicted to. It's so easy for me to become addicted to things. When I like things, I become obsessed. And something like weed, where you have to mix with tobacco that has nicotine, which is addictive, is something that I can't do once and not want to keep doing it. I couldn't do, I thought, yeah, let me just smoke once. Once I smoked once, I'm fine. Didn't smoke for 2 days. After that 2 days, I was a full-blown weed addict again. Because it doesn't work like that. When you cut something off, you have to cut that thing off. When you say no, you have to keep saying no. Like, you may think that, oh, smoking weed, I'm not an addict. You are an addict because you cannot stop. Like, an addiction doesn't mean you are a crackhead or you're an alcoholic. It means that you can't go without it. Or whenever a certain situation arises, you feel like you need that. That is the meaning of being an addict, okay? And I know I was one. From 13, it started off slowly. It didn't start off by being a full-blown addict. I would socially smoke. Then I started dating dating boys who smoked. So I'd smoke with them. Then I started picking up by myself because I was a lonely teenager and I found that smoking weed just numbed that lonely feeling. And so I'd smoke. To a point, I remember my ex gave me an ultimatum. He said, it's either the weed or me. And I picked the weed. I said, I'm not going to stop smoking. You can't numb the pain like this weed does. I became codependent on weed. I didn't like myself. I never thought smoking was cute. And I wanted to be a cute babe. I didn't want to be one of those girls that smoked weed. It just seemed so hoodlum. Like, that's my opinion. It just seemed so ghetto. But I was addicted. And even when I dated a guy that didn't smoke, I felt like a crackhead because I would smoke weed and he never smoked. But I couldn't stop. I used to look at people and envy people who were able to get through life and not have to smoke, because that wasn't me. But I relied on God and eventually I stopped. And I was so determined not to become that woman again, because I knew that if I became that person again, all of my self-development work would just come crashing down and I'd revert back to that person. Because who was you when you smoked? That's what you have to ask yourself, because the moment you start smoking again is the moment you become that person again. You cannot remain this person and still smoke. It doesn't work like that. The moment you start smoking again is the moment you become that person who smokes. So for me, when I used to go back to smoking, I go back to fornication. I go back to anger. I go back to rage. I go back to anxiety. I go back to sadness. Because that is the person I was when I smoked. The person that doesn't smoke is a person who's confident, bold, someone who's strong, someone who is clear visioned, someone who can deal with life without relying on substances. You have to understand who you are now and ask, is it worth losing who I am now and going back to who I was? You've got all of this time on earth and you really need to decide, what type of person do I want to be? That is my pep talk for anyone who is tempted to start smoking again. It's not worth it. But if this video was for you, then thank God, because there was times where I needed this pep talk and I always had someone to give me that pep talk. Even though I may not have always listened, there was always someone that God sent to me to give me a pep talk to stop smoking. And even if you started smoking again, stop. But thank you for watching. I'm Lakeishaa. I make faith-based content, motivational videos, girl talks, self-development videos, everything about becoming your best self. If that is something you think you'd like, then please subscribe and share with a friend if you think this video can bless someone. But that is it for today. I will see you in my next video. Bye.